Welcome to our 8 Sports Extra. We have all kinds of great stuff for you lined up tonight in advance of Saturday's Wonderful Pistachios 400 at Richmond International Raceway. But before we talk about this year's group of chasers, we need to talk about the guys that made last year's postseason. They visited with the president yesterday. Yanni Caracas has that story.
With just 5 days between races, appearances for these NASCAR drivers are at a premium this week, but when President Obama calls, you have to make the visit. 8 of last year's chase drivers made a stop at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue on Tuesday, celebrating the sport of NASCAR and Jimmie Johnson's 5th straight championship. Despite being a busy man these days, President Obama says he can relate to these drivers.
NASCAR is a sport where anything that can go wrong will go wrong at some point during the season. Similar to being president?
I think it gives it relevance. You see the championship team or playoff teams of different sports that come each and every year, and I think that it just puts us in that spotlight where we really belong.
If Denny wants his number 11 car parked at the White House like Jimmie Johnson's was on Tuesday, he'll have to figure out a way to beat the 48 car after coming up short last year.
It's great to have number 48 parked outside. Jimmie is not just one of the best drivers of all time. He's up there with some of the great sports dynasties.
Despite not driving very often, the president did receive a gift he hopes to put to use.
I will wear the helmet and the gloves when I'm driving, golf cart 1.
Fantastic. We'll be safe.
Obama joked that he's been paying attention to all the trash talking in NASCAR in recent weeks, but all kidding aside, the thing he may enjoy most about the sport is its support for our troops.
Now, what also makes NASCAR special is the difference that it makes in the lives of so many people, especially our troops and their families. And I personally thanked all these guys for what they've been doing on behalf of military families.
Now, the 8 drivers that were at the White House today were part of the 2010 chase, but some of these drivers, like Denny Hamlin, are on the bubble to make the 2011 chase. If they do so and win it, they'll be meeting President Obama again this time next year. At the White House, I'm Yanni Caracas, 8 Sports.
Thanks, Yanni. The addition of 2 wild cards into the chase for the championship has made it tougher than ever to predict who's going to end up at the White House next year. 9 drivers locked into the top 10, but an unprecedented 14 drivers are fighting for either a wild card or one of the final spots in the top 10.
To come here to Richmond and have a shot at getting in the chase, I think is fantastic. Who would have thought that, 5 weeks ago, I think we were, 22nd in the points, and who would have thought you could come to Richmond and actually have an outside chance at making the chase?
We know what we need to do to get in the chase. We have to win again, or there's some guys that we have to beat, and we want Brad Keselowski to drive us way in the top 10. So there's a lot of different scenarios, but we're not going to go about our business any different. We show up tomorrow morning, put the helmet on, and go.
Hopefully it doesn't come down to too dramatic of a finish at the end. I don't want to be part of that. I know I'm the guy that's going to be in or out.
All we can do is just go out and try as hard as we can to win the race. We finished 4th here in the spring, bringing back the same car that we feel like we've made it better. So I feel like we've got a great shot. This is a track that we always circle on the calendar throughout the year that we feel like we can win at.
Meanwhile, Brad Keselowski is sitting pretty. With 3 wins, he's in the chase at least as a wild card participant. He still wants to get into the top 10 and have those wins count when they reseed following the Wonderful Pistachios 400. But while 14 drivers stress about whether or not they'll make the postseason, Keselowski has nothing to lose.
That's the benefit of winning races. His 3 checkered flags all but lock him into one of the 2 wild card berths, but if he ends up in the top 10, that opens things up even more, making this fantastic wild card race even more interesting.
Brad Keselowski survives and wins in Kansas.
It really is the finishing touches on the chase and what the chase needed. The thing about the chase was, and I think almost every driver or fan would say it whether they knew it or not, but it really devalued a lot of races throughout the middle of the year because it just didn't mean anything. It seemed like by the time you got to race 10, there was only 3 or 4 people fighting to get into the chase, and it never really changed from there. With the wild card picture, heck, you could go to tracks like Pocono that kind of used to be snoozers and didn't really make a difference. If you win Pocono like I did, now you're all of a sudden got a shot at being in the chase.
He doesn't just have a shot at making the chase, he's the hottest driver on the circuit and is a legitimate championship contender. Pocono was just the beginning of Keselowski's torrid run. In the month of August, he finished no worse than third, taking the checkered flag at Bristol as well. Now Keselowski has the chance to take the number 2 Miller Lite Dodge, one of the most iconic cars in the sport, to a place it's never been.
It's a dream opportunity to drive the Blue Deuce. It's an honor. You know, it's a car that's been around for quite some time, you know, before I was born, and you know, I feel very lucky to drive a ride that's very prestigious and won a lot of races, and it's never won a championship, though, so hopefully we can be the guys to get that done.
Keselowski's as good a bet as any in this wide-open field. With a win already at one of the Chase tracks, don't count out the postseason rookie.
We have plenty more ahead. We'll talk about an outstanding event that a number of NASCAR wives and mothers put on for a great cause. Plus, we talk to Danica Patrick as she prepares to make the move full-time to NASCAR's Nationwide Series. Don't go anywhere. It's never too early to start thinking about next year, and there's no doubt that Danica Patrick will be the most talked about rookie in the Nationwide Series after she announced the move to a full-time NASCAR schedule. She returns to Richmond International Raceway this weekend, a familiar track from her IndyCar days.
I'm glad to be in Richmond. I always really loved coming to Richmond in IndyCar. I was very disappointed to see it come off the schedule, as I have been over the years of many races. But this one was always a great one, and I always did really well here. So it'll be interesting to see if that'll translate to a stock car or not.
It's a good thing this stop at RIR fit into her IndyCar schedule, because this is such an important race in the Sprint Cup schedule, where we should expect to see Patrick in 2013.
If it was either this one or a track that, you know, perhaps, you know, doesn't get raced on, but, you know, in Nationwide or once a year, then I might not have done it. But Richmond is obviously very much part of the schedule, and, you know, critical in the schedule, especially the positioning that it has in Sprint Cup with the way it falls leading up to the Chase.
Don't think Patrick isn't looking ahead to the Sprint Cup Series either. She'll run a limited schedule next year with Stewart-Haas Racing.
I've been really lucky that the fans and all the hosts and announcers are very patient with me, and you know, hopefully I'll be able to put that all together next year in the Nationwide Series, but it's going to be another learning curve with Sprint Cup, I'm sure.
And her expectations for Friday night under the lights at the Action Track?
I'll be looking for a solid weekend where it's stay out of trouble, you know, stay on the lead lap as long as I can, hopefully the whole time, and just, you know, run it to the end and get the experience, and top 10 or 15 would be fine, and move on.
It didn't take long for the Women in Wheels event at Richmond International Raceway to become a tradition. Dara Copley was at the second annual benefit. She has the story.
NASCAR is about to rev up in Richmond, but before the green flag drops tomorrow, the women behind NASCAR's finest drivers came together to raise money for a local charity.
The good thing about his success is it allows us the ability to be able to give back and to help less fortunate.
Thursday night's event benefits the Freedom House, a nonprofit organization that provides food, shelter, and job counseling to the region's homeless and working poor.
I think the Freedom House does such a good job in helping people get back on their feet, and this event is such a worthwhile cause.
My mother-in-law, Meredith, lives close to here. Jeff's aunt, Mary Ruth, lives in Richmond, and his grandmother, Bubba, lives here. So, and this is a great organization that gives back to this community.
I know it's a good cause, and if I can help in any region of the United States and I'm here, I'm going to help.
This feeding the homeless and the poor has always been big in my life.
Really exciting, and to be able to help an organization that's local here in Richmond, our hometown, is great.
We usually see each other in a different setting, but honestly, we do a lot of charity events, not just this one.
And organizers of Women on Wheels say the event will continue for years to come. From RIR, Dara Copley, 8 Sports.
Thanks, Darren. This really is a great cause. If you would like to get involved, we have some information that you may need. 3 ways you can make a donation to the Freedom House. You can mail a check to 1201 Hull Street in Richmond. You can call 804-233-4064. You can go online and read about Freedom House and make a donation there. Just log on to freedomhouserichmond.org. Thanks so much for joining us for our 8 Sports Extra. We're back live at the track starting tomorrow on 8 News at 5, and we'll have the best coverage of the wonderful Pistachios 400 through the checkered flag. Remember, if you're not going to watch it right here on TV8 on Saturday night, remember, you can watch it right here, rather, on TV8 Saturday night. Coverage starts at 7 o'clock. For Yanni Caracas and Dara Copley, I'm Phil Orban. Have a great night.